All right, everyone. Big episode today of Group Chat. It's, it is Diwali, which is the Indian New Year. And so happy Diwali to all our Indian Kathis. And because of that, we're having an all-Indian episode.
We had to
bring in our brother into the pod. And I don't want to spoil it because it's an incredible conversation about crypto, blockchain, NFTs, Metaverse. And I think as you listen to it, I think you're going to find yourself understanding it a lot better than you did, maybe an hour ago.
Sure.
And really, there's a part in the middle of the conversation that I really want you all to pay attention to when he explains the blockchain, because I think that your head will explode and you'll be like, okay, now I get it.
Yeah. And
then you'll have a deeper appreciation for what NFTs represent, what everything that's happening in our culture right now. Exciting conversation. And speaking of culture, there's a lot of our friends we're going to talk about at the end of this podcast. One of our friends and popular guest of the group chat, Zach Bia, talking about he stepped out to New York for NFT week. We saw him DJing all the hot parties. He bought an ape.
Yeah. I mean, if I need to be convinced about NFTs, it was yesterday when he changed his profile pic to an ape and posted he bought an ape.
When I went on Instagram last night, I had, no joke, on Instagram stories, 3 were apes, like their profiles. And so a guy I follow, Tushar, he has an ape. Von Miller has an ape. Zach has an ape. It's insane.
And even Jason's hero, FaZe Bank,
has an ape.
Posted Zach Bia like, holy shit, Zach's got an ape.
The kid got an ape.
The kid got an ape.
So exciting.
On the heels of that, we had to have this masterclass in crypto, which is pretty much the whole episode except for winners, losers, and content.
Yeah.
And it's a must listen.
Yeah. We intro our guest in the episode. So I want you to be excited because I want you to hear the entire story. So let's get into it.
Cash.
Ladies and gentlemen, Group Chat.
Cash.
It's $1 trillion. Hot.
All right, everyone. We have a special Diwali all Indian episode.
Yeah. We had to get the white guy out.
It is a big Indian holiday. It is our New Year's, and we wanted to kick the year off with a big special guest. Who do we have here, Anand?
So we have one of my closest friends, Amitt Mahajan, who I've known over 10 plus years, maybe longer than that. And Amitt is one of the OG Silicon Valley tech guys that actually was building companies before it was cool to be in tech.
Yeah.
And Amitt built a game, probably one of the most famous mobile games ever, Farmville, which is part of Zynga, and has been a tech visionary ever since. And, Amitt also dove into crypto really early. And when Ether in 2016 came on a little exchange called Dyrdek, shot me a text and said, you should buy some.
Yeah. Well, what was the price then?
$10.
Where was my text?
And, I don't question a tech visionary. I'm like, if he's telling me to buy Ether at $10, I'm buying Ether at $10.
That's a good point. And he's calling us now in from New York City, which obviously, if you've been paying attention to NFT and crypto land, was basically a very exciting place to be. It looked like it was a rap festival meets technology meets art is kind of what it felt like an exciting week, at least from what we saw on social media. And I guess you're going to give us the lowdown of what the hell is going on.
And I think as it relates to NFTs and crypto, Amitt also grew up gaming, which is an integral part of this NFT space. And Amitt, maybe just give a little more color on your background other than you telling me to buy Ether at $10 and creating one of the biggest mobile games ever.
Yeah, I mean, so my background, other than the stuff you mentioned, is I started programming when I was 9 years old. I was working on 3D engines when I was in high school, and this guy John Carmack, who made the game Doom and eventually became the CTO of Oculus, Facebook's VR system, was like my childhood hero growing up. So,
how do you even know who that is when you're like 9 years old?
So he was like the equivalent of me and Michael Jordan. That's John.
Yeah, I mean, I think many programmers would describe John Carmack as the Michael Jordan of programmers, just like a guy who can basically just carry a team on his back. I mean, he almost single-handedly built like, the real-time 3D gaming industry and had all these innovations. And really there's a, when you look at kind of the idea of like hero programmers, like he kind of is like top of the list because it just the amount he was able to do on his own to move the industry forward was just really, really inspiring, especially to an introvert kind of programmer like myself. And so, so I was just building 3D engines for the game and working on game and kind of building worlds within these games I was playing, like Quake and Doom and so on. Eventually, I joined a company that everyone knows now for Fortnite called Epic Games. But I was there when I was like 60 people, really small, and just got a real chance to see what the kind of future held in terms of like 3D graphics and virtual worlds and so on. So my entire career has been kind of centered around this idea of the digitization of our existence. So even Farmville, before it was Farmville, was it was a MySpace plugin. And you on your MySpace page, you basically have like a little virtual world, and you like buy items for it, and you like decorate your house. And eventually, we got bought by Zynga, and we started working on Farmville, and we transformed that virtual home into a virtual farm. But kind of my existence has always been about this idea of like what happens when you start to put our identities online and represent in these in these kind of digital spaces. And most recently, you were an investor in this. I was running a company called Rarebits. It was an NFT marketplace that we started back in 2018. So right after CryptoKitties came out, my first thought was, we should go build. We should run the Zynga playbook again, but run it on chain, right on Ethereum. And for those that don't know, CryptoKitties was like one of the first blockchain, NFT based games. It came out like right after CryptoPunks, and it was a game where you just collect cats and you breed them, and it had the notoriety of like taking down the Ethereum network and just like really clogging everything up because there were so many people breeding these cats that like all these gas prices just like went and shot up. It was like the first time we truly had a gas war on Ethereum. So long story short, I was running this NFT marketplace for a couple of years. Before there was really people using NFTs at all. At the time, it was like, maybe a couple hundred people a day were interacting with NFTs. And we were like going to all these companies. We were trying to convince people that, hey, NFTs are going to be massive. And like, they're like, NFTs, like, get out of here. Like, why would people ever want to buy this stuff? And so it was really an uphill battle in 2018 and 2019. And eventually I threw in the towel. I went and said, I want to go just take some time off from work for a bit. And most recently, I've just kind of gotten back into it. And so, I mean, what's happening right now with the metaverse and the kind of this, it's almost like this like confluence of all the things I've been interested in my entire life are kind of come together. And so this is an opportunity to kind of share kind of how I see the world a bit with you guys, and happy to expand more on what you find interesting.
Yeah, I think I think our listeners, there's a wide variety of people. There are people that are all are in New York right now and are completely integrated into what's going on. And then there's the other side of the spectrum, which is like, what the hell is going on and how did this all happen? And I think would be a great starting point is, what do you think was the pivotal moment that got people excited about this? Because we were observing it, and then all of a sudden, like the last few months just went bananas. From you're so ingrained in the culture and the kind of the early days of this, and you saw the future, and something happened that just woke the entire fucking world up. What was that?
I mean, I think the Occam's razor response, the simplest explanation is just greed. People realize.
Can you explain what Occam's razor is to the audience?
Occam's razor is just like the simplest explanation is probably the right one, right? So if your intuition's like people are just trying to make money and flip stuff, that's probably the reason that most people get involved. But what's interesting is that actually portrays like all the actual really cool innovation that's been happening. Because people are like, oh, crypto, like it's easy to be like dismiss it as like scams or pump and dumps or any of this other stuff, without realizing that there's been like a lot of work put into the underlying the infrastructure. So actually, I think the big event was all the Beeple sales at the end of 2020. And what was interesting about Beeple was he actually, like, one of the problems that people have with NFTs in general is they're these digital goods, right? They're like JPEGs. You're like, they're images, and you're like, I can right click and save as, and now I have a copy of this. Like, why is this worth anything? So Beeple, he had to like kind of, when he did his sale, he had to teach people that, hey, there's actual real value here. And the way that he did it was he tied his digital sales to physical goods. And so that kind of like bridged the gap between the physical and digital scarcity that like drives value. And that was the thing that kind of got, I think, kind of made it make sense for people. And then like, the sale prices got really ridiculous. There was a $69 million sale that was done. And like, that's kind of like big headlines. And then people were like, oh, there's like real value here. I know you guys talk about tech companies a lot. It's like almost like, there's a bunch of noise in like startup investing, but every once in a while there's a company that's real value, and then it kind of creates a halo effect for like all of the other companies that are out there. So it's like Uber is worth this billions of dollars. Now everyone's looking for like the next Uber of X, right? Uber for food, Uber for pets, Uber for masseuses. The same thing's true in NFTs. Is there's a few projects that have a ton of value and a ton of cultural value, and artistic value, and those, because they're so highly sought after, so highly valued, and because there's so much money in crypto already, it creates this like halo effect with all these other projects. And so because everyone's just trying to buy lottery tickets a little bit, like when there's new drops or whatever, hoping that like they're going to get the next potential people. And there are some, and that's the thing, is like they are literally lottery tickets. Like some people they're like, oh man, I was there, I could have bought a Bored Ape, and then like it blows up, and then they're always looking for the next one, and there will be a next one. That's the thing. That's the reason that it's been sustaining itself. But yeah, so I basically put on these major sales as being like the thing that's kind of like set it off, and also like there's some projects like Bored Ape's a great example. For those that don't know, the Bored Ape Yacht Club is like one of these like premier prestige projects. I think Steph Curry bought one, and they've been doing a lot of stuff here in New York this week where, if you own a Bored Ape, you basically have access to these parties, and they like check to see that you own a Bored Ape in your Ethereum account, and they use that to grant you access. So a lot of what's happening now is that these NFTs are like, their communities are forming around them. People are using them as proof of belonging and like proof of status to get you into like events. Like Lil Baby was at the Bored Ape party last night. It's pretty wild. There was Cascade played at a different NFTs party, so it's pretty crazy. The amount of access you can get. So it's like buying into a membership club now. So there's more utility than just having like a cool piece of art.
So first off, that's all great information. You've been in crypto for as long as it's existed, or at least been following it and been following like the different communities around it. What's different in the crowd at NYNFT Week versus like 10 years ago where it was just engineers? And who's showing up to NYNFT Week? Obviously, Little Baby's an attraction, so you get the cool kids. But like, is it engineers? Is it just young professionals? Like, what's the crowd?
It's a pretty eclectic mix because, again, what's interesting is like NFTs are like assets, right? They can be homes, they can be art, they can be items in the game, they can be personal videos or personal messages. Like it's very wide. So the crowd's very wide as well. And so first of all, yes, when you at these crypto conferences from like even like the Ethereum conferences from like 4 years ago, it was mostly developers, people hacking on Ethereum, trying to build cool applications, that kind of thing. Now you're getting a lot more artists, a lot more people who are just community members, people who are just like, I bought a Bored Ape and I just want to be involved in this community. Game makers, folks who are starting to build games on top of Ethereum, and their games are using NFTs. Artists, a lot of marketers, promoters, people who are like doing consulting services. It's an entire it's an entire new industry, right? It's like an entire like branch of crypto with like all of its own service providers and cast of characters and so on.
What's interesting is we have last week on the podcast Ian Rogers, who's at Ledger, and he's similar to you, been around the space for a very, very long time. And his view is, if you look at cryptocurrency as an asset, and then you look at NFTs as an asset, and then you look at the opportunities in NFTs and the opportunities in cryptocurrency, he felt that longer term, NFTs is just a way bigger opportunity, and that there's way more exciting things happening because of he listed off so many different use cases, everything from like souvenirs to community to access point. And if you believe the metaverse is something that is going to exist, which clearly it's going to, with everyone kind of pursuing it, do you feel like if you're a young person today, and let's say you have finite amount of resources, would you be putting your money and energy in focusing on the NFT and the metaverse space or on crypto space?
Ooh, that's a great question. Let's put a pin in the metaverse thing, because I have an opinion on that as well.
Okay.
Metaverse existing, but let's start with your first question, which is like crypto versus NFTs. Personally, I would keep more money in just in crypto, in actual currencies, at least right now.
Yeah,
I think it's possible to find alpha and find upside potential in NFTs, but it's a lot harder. But the more important thing is the liquidity. So if I'm selling you Bitcoin, you don't care if it's Bitcoin 1 or Bitcoin 1 million. Like it's fungible, right? Mm-hmm. Like one Bitcoin is one Bitcoin. With NFTs, you have to find a market clearing price for every single NFT individually.
Yeah.
So, one Bored Ape number 5 is not the same as Bored Ape number 5,000, and they have different properties, and the price people are willing to pay for is different. So the liquidity is a lot less. It's a lot harder to sell it.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to trade in and out of these things, it's very difficult to actually know what the true value of something is. So what most people have been doing with NFTs is they've been using what's known as a floor price, which is the cheapest possible price you can pay to buy something of a collection. So for example, for CryptoPunks, the floor price has been hovering around $400,000. For Bored Apes, it's about $100,000. And those are considered blue chip assets, like stuff that has cultural value. There's enough demand for them that they'll kind of maintain their value. But a lot of these other NFT projects, you may buy in at 5 ETH, and it launches. So, and then, the price crashes. Actually, so let me give you an example. I've actually lost a bit of money just trading NFTs. So I can just share my own horror stories with this, right? So I went in and I spent a week just going to all these, almost all of these projects, they live on Discord. So each NFT project has Discord, and what they do is they tend to do a drop. So you go in and you basically say they're okay, on, February 5th at 9 p.m. there's going to be, we're doing our public sale, and show up then, and you can then mint your thing. And it's sometimes it's free, sometimes it's 0.01 ETH, which is $40. It ranges anywhere from it's free to up to $500, $600 worth of ETH. And so everyone goes in, and the other thing is there's a tiered system. They give some out to influencers ahead of time to kind of juice the project. They give some out, they do this whitelist thing where it's if you come in, if you support the project early and you invite a bunch of people to the Discord, we'll give you a white sale. So it's tiers. It's there's already status tiers being built in these projects.
Yeah.
So you go and so say everyone mints it for $50. They then wait till everything's been minted, and then they do a reveal. And so you get one of these, there's one recently, there was this Metasaur. It was a metaverse dinosaur, right? And it's anonymous. You don't know what your thing looks like yet. And then after everything's been minted, they reveal it. And then everyone knows what they have. And if you got a rare or not a rare or whatever. It's as if Top Shots sold like 1,000 packs of Top Shots, and then like they opened all the packs at the same time.
Yeah.
And what ends up happening is everyone's like, "Oh, mine sucks." So they all put it up for sale. So what then happen, and then they usually put it up for whatever their cost of the initial mint was, plus the gas cost. So there's a natural floor price.
Yeah.
But then everyone's like, because everyone's putting up at the same price, everyone's trying to undercut each other. So the floor price tends to drop pretty significantly after a reveal. So it just turns out that like it's almost always a bad deal to like get in and buy this thing, because you buy it and then you're like, I got a common, you try to resell it, and then you're competing with like 1,000 other sellers to like unload your shit, and then like that's it. So I did that a few times. I'm like, this is a scam. Like, why would I keep doing this? And like, I'm just like throwing money away. And the other thing is like the gas fees in Ethereum are nuts. They're crazy, because Ethereum, it doesn't have the capacity. So what happens is you have 1,000 people trying to mint something, and then you have this gas war. So people who spend more gas get their mint to go through. So now you're like playing this auction with the gas price, and you may be paying $50 for the NFT, but you're spending like $500 on gas.
Yeah.
It's like those are real numbers, right?
Yeah.
And like you just end up realizing that like it's actually really hard to like buy and flip NFTs, and like the people who tend to be pretty good at it are the ones that somehow get privileged. They get like privileged access. They don't have to do gas work because they're pre-minting. They have a deal with the team, the founders of these projects to promote it. And that's not to say that everything is like this, but just it happens that like the majority of stuff out there tends to be like this. And that's one of the reasons that NFTs are getting such a bad rap, honestly, is because of these projects.
Yeah.
So personally, if you're investing, I would just buy and hold ETH, because everyone's paying the gas anyways to trade this stuff.
Yeah.
So you might as well just profit off the people that are participating in the NFT market.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
That's my take.
So that was a great explanation on the NFT and where everything's going. And the most buzzword of the last 3 weeks is the metaverse.
What is that?
Can you break down the metaverse so that, a lot of people...
Yeah, sure.
So I have one big question I need you to answer on the metaverse thing too. And you can answer it at the end. So eventually I'm going to have an avatar of myself on the metaverse. Okay? Let's assume, I don't know if that's where the world's going. Will my real life weight reflect my metaverse weight? Or will I be able to alter that?
You want a six-pack in the metaverse?
Well, no. I actually think if you are fat in real life, you should be fat in the metaverse.
No, it's just like emojis. Everyone has like the greatest hair in emoji land.
No. Yeah, I mean, if you're fat and bald, then you're fat and bald in the metaverse. You should not be able to... You'd have to pay big bucks.
More gas.
Well, it's like plastic surgery. Yeah.
The heavier weight your avatar is, the more work that everyone else is forcing you to do to render your avatar.
So it gives you motivation to lose weight, because then you don't want to pay all the gas fees walking around the metaverse.
What if that's how we got the country healthy?
Yeah, because
it's too expensive to be fat in the metaverse.
Oh, dude.
Okay, let's step back.
I can't log in. I can't log into a loose 10.
Yeah, exactly. What is the metaverse? Break it down so that someone who never has participated in technology can understand it.
We don't even know what it is.
Okay, I'll break it down for you. The metaverse it's this idea of virtual world. The idea that we, humans, instead of us like living kind of in our reality, we like go into this digital world where we can kind of do and be whatever we want, right? And so the term originally comes from this book by Neil Stephenson called Snow Crash, where it's like a sci-fi book where a lot of really cool stuff happens in the metaverse. There's like, different organizations and so on, and just everyone's like plugged into this thing. More recently, there was a movie called Ready Player One, and a book called Ready Player One, where the idea of a metaverse kind of like takes center stage. There's people they take classes online, like kind of in this digital world. They go to clubs, they socialize, they play games, and the idea is that like the idea of the metaverse is that the promise of it is that the digital world can actually be way more interesting than the physical world, and not have as many constraints. And so recently, and a lot of times people like they kind of link the metaverse to VR, and Facebook has announced their virtual world called Horizon. Now they're rebranding their company called to Meta, and their belief is that and I think the reason that they've done it, and they're pretty explicit about this, is that increasingly people want higher and higher fidelity experiences when it comes to interacting socially online, and the metaverse is that. So when you think about like Fortnite's a really good example of an early metaverse concept where people are, when I was younger, we used to go to people's houses and we'd like sit in the basement of someone's house and like play video games and watch TV and stuff like that. But that was before the internet. And now with the internet, and quarantines and stuff, like, kids are basically just hanging out in Fortnite and they're not even playing the game. They're just like, they have like their voice chat in, they're like running around doing stuff. But generally it's almost like an online hangout. And the idea is that like more as it gets more and more higher fidelity, more and more of our time is spent kind of in this digital hangout versus physical hangouts. And obviously there's dystopian kind of viewpoints of that, but let's put that aside for a second. And so one of the interesting things is that there's different views of what the metaverse actually is and how it would be built. And the kind of the consensus view that everyone's taking is like what was shown in Ready Player One, which is that like the metaverse is this virtual world. It's going to be VR goggles. We're going to be plugged in. It's going to be like indistinguishable from the Matrix when it's like kind of at its peak. I take a slightly different view, which is, and this is kind of hits at what you were talking about your weight. Is that to me, the metaverse is actually, I think it already exists, and it's actually the data. It's the data and the representations of that data change. It could be 2D, it could be 3D, it could be a virtual world, it could be in VR, it could not be in VR, but the data is the constant. Now here's an example. So you guys are like people, right? And you're represented in a lot of different ways depending on the context you're in. So, you go by the name Dee. You may also go, by whatever your profile photo is, and that may be different if you're on Instagram or if you're on Twitter, if you're on LinkedIn. You may have a 3D avatar in Fortnite, which looks different than a 3D avatar, in Minecraft or whatever. And so but you as the person are the same. You're the same thing. Just the representation of you has changed. And so it's really, this is one of the cool things about the metaverse is that, we can be whatever we want. We can try on different skins. We can try on different identities. And that's part of why it's so freeing from the physical world. When we're born to the physical world, you're born as like an Indian male, Californian, and those are the labels that are attached to you from birth, right? But in the metaverse, you can create your own labels. You can be like, oh, you know what? I want to be female, or I want to be a dinosaur, or I want to be skinny versus fat. And because it's so expansive and there's so much potential here, there could be different universes. There could be a universe in which they force you to step on a scale and your avatar weight is actually based on the weight that the scale measures.
I like that.
And there's other worlds that are more free, right? They can have less restrictive rules. You can change gender, you can change your size, you can change your color, whatever. And so it's and I know it's a lot to kind of process, and it sounds like there's so many options. But that's actually the point, is that it's actually freeing because we're not tied to, atoms and the laws of the laws of physics as like we are in the physical world. We can truly invent new types of realities. And so that's what you're seeing online. People Ethereum right now is being used as kind of this this NFT chain where it's kind of the main place that all these NFTs and assets are living. So people are using CryptoPunks profile photos. They're using Bored Apes as profile photos, and they're basically okay. I don't, who knows? We don't even know what these people's real names are. So the founders of Bored Apes, they're just pseudonymous, right? No one knows what their real names are. They just go by their apes. And Satoshi Nakamoto, basically kind of the creator of Bitcoin, basically started this trend by being completely anonymous. We don't know who he is. And so there's this idea that the digital world that exists within the metaverse is inherently completely decoupled from the physical world. And so, you can just construct your own ego. You can construct your own identity from the ground up. And I think for a lot of people, that's such a, incredibly freeing thing that the promise is super exciting. That's the reason people are getting so excited about it.
Is that an extension? Yeah, is that an extension of basically the real world? Most people are miserable. So this is a chance to kind of start fresh and be happy and experience things differently.
I mean, that's definitely part of it. I also think it's just, I mean, for some people, that's definitely going to be motivation, right? I think for other people, it's just like, why do we read like fantasy books? Like, why do we all, why do we like Harry Potter, and why do we like, the Marvel universe? Because these stories transport us to just different, different realities. And so the metaverse is like the interactive version of that, right? Where you get to like not just like watch someone else's story and pretend like you're in their shoes for a bit, and do like, I mean, Halloween, Halloween just passed. Like, what do? We dress up as characters from all these shows that we like. We get to pretend to be someone else for a bit. And it's so cool. It's fun. So it's not always from a like I'm running away from something. I think in a lot of ways it's I'm being pulled towards something that's a chance to just have this different experience.
And so conceptually, I understand what you're saying. What does that mean 5-10 years from now? Because everyone has like, the people that are all in on this portray a world that I'm not truly interested in because I'm older and grew up differently. But like, where do you see, like, what is going out on a Friday night look like 10 years from now? What does education look like? What do our kids, how do they live 10 years from now?
Yeah, no, and the thing is, it's interesting. Like, we're in this like weird transition period where we were alive before the internet existed. Yeah. So like everyone being born today, like the internet's just part of their life.
Yeah.
And so the same thing's gonna be true with the metaverse, right? Like people born today, like this, it's just the metaverse exists for them. So, just the level of understanding is just gonna be way more like native to future generations than it is to ours. Like, I like to think that like trying to grok this concept is like what our parents must have felt like trying to grok the internet. Like, I don't know how many you guys probably do. You're Indian and you probably do IT support for not just your parents but your friends' parents. Yeah. And like and so like you just realize there's like a conceptual like gap there. And so like I think that's what this is for millennials. And so like in the future, like here's an example, like there's probably a best math teacher. There's someone who's like the best in the world at teaching math. And like, if we had the technology before, every kid should just learn from the best math teacher, straight up. And so in the metaverse, it's possible, right? And not only could that kid learn from the best math teacher, they could be front and center right there. Sports games, you always have the best seat in the house, right? There's no reason that like the constraints and scarcity of space in our physical world affects our future world. So essentially you have the access to the best teachers. You have access to the best concerts, no matter where they're happening worldwide. There's already a bunch of companies out there doing virtual concerts. Like Travis Scott ended up doing a concert at Fortnite, and like I think it was like millions of people attended it. Scooter Braun just invested in the Wave, which is doing like virtual events. So like, anything that before was scarce and hard to get access to in the real world can actually be fully abundantly accessed by everyone in the metaverse. And so you can start to kind of derive what those cases are going to be from there. Like there's an argument that, we don't go to movie theaters anymore. We all put our VR headsets on and we're just in the theater together regardless of where we are. So like we get this like cool, and we're all like in the perfect seat with the perfect IMAX screen. Obviously, like
what about the snacks?
Well, that's the problem, right? Like there's a point where the fidelity's not there. So and we'll see it evolve over our time. But like the other side of this too is that we all like anyone can create, just like the internet was a constellation of websites created by like all of us. The same thing's true as the metaverse. It's like we can all create different universes. So you're seeing kind of the early versions of this and what's happening in Minecraft and Roblox, where like kids are they're creating games for other kids and they're making money. Like I think there's worlds. I mean, already right now, I think it's possible to start creating worlds that other people find interesting, they're willing to pay money for, and they're willing to buy. And so these bringing it all the way back to NFTs, like these Bored Apes and these CryptoPunks that are selling for hundreds of thousands of dollars are great examples of really early and simple versions of metaverse assets that eventually be worth something or that are of value to other people. And so, and I mean, it's wild. I mean, we could literally do this for hours, but like, with examples, but like, another example is that there's games that exist already. And it's kind of like there's like this like simple Pokemon-like game called Axie Infinity,
Yeah.
and it costs like about $1,200 for a starter team. Like you have to buy 3 of them, each one's like $400, and so there's people that just can't afford it. But what other people are doing is they're buying this team of these Pokemon. They're lending them out to other people to like grind through the game for them, because as you play the game, you like earn rewards that are like you can then sell for real money. So then there's people who are like almost like the franchise owners. They're buying these teams of Axies. They're lending them out to players who are then grinding through the game, earning rewards, selling those rewards. So this entire industry, you have people who are like basically making money off of just playing video games.
Yeah.
They're like grinding through these video games, and like they're making like, I mean, in a lot of these folks are in the Philippines. They're making like $400 to $500 a week, I believe, is the current going rate for this, just for playing this game. And so this entire industry is called play to earn, and I think you're going to see a lot more of that, of people creating this content for people, just playing the games. And there's these entire economies that are just going to be completely digital that are going to start to create. So it could be that your kid's first job, instead of selling lemonade on the street, is like grinding through some RPG for someone else and just earning like $500 a week doing it.
Yeah. And so do you, as someone that obviously is fully embraced in this new world and understands it and enjoys it, what are your concerns about this world? Because like me being the dinosaur, I look at it and be like,
are you the dinosaur in Metaverse or dinosaur like you're old? Because you said you could be a dinosaur in Metaverse.
Maybe I'm both.
Okay.
A skinny dinosaur in the Metaverse. But do you feel like, how do you explain it to the older people and be like, yes, our future will be completely digital. You're probably not leaving your house anymore, and it's just the way what we'll live. And all those things that we enjoy doing, there's better versions of it in the digital world. So why would you go continue to do it, right? Like you could argue that like you could have the best boxing trainer with an Oculus headset on and getting trained by the best boxer in the world, as opposed to schlepping your way all the way to the gym and going and doing it there. Like how do you like, just think through that? And how do you explain to people, or do you feel there will be some sort of physical interaction 50, 100 years from now? Or do you think it's like, fuck it, we're just not leaving our house because we don't need to?
So before Amitt, who is the expert, answers it, I just want to give my just kind of quick reaction. I kind of think we're seeing it today. So Amitt said last night at the Bored Ape party, to get in, you have to show your digital ape.
Yeah.
And then you get to go see Little Baby.
Yeah.
So maybe it's possible that they're just going to coexist. But I'd love to hear your take.
I think it's possible it's going to coexist. The way I view it is like things that aren't that great in the real world are going to move online pretty quickly. And then that's going to leave the time we spend offline on things that are like truly, truly important to us. Like there's no substitute for having a great meal with friends at a restaurant, for being in the same room. Like, we've all spent a bunch of time on Zoom, and like, we know there's fatigue there, and like, there's just a different vibe when you're interacting with people in the real world. But doing things like waiting in line or like going to a non-ideal movie theater or whatever it may be, like those things I think are going to move online pretty quickly because they're just better experiences. And so my view of it is that like the digital and physical world are inherently going to become blurred. The lines between the two are going to become blurred. And, my concerns are that I do think there are people that are going to use it as escapism. I do think that's definitely going to be the case. I think but that's already happening with even like mobile games and, other online games. Like that's just the case. And I think the solve for that is not by like reducing screen time or whatever. I think it's actually trying to figure out what the core root issue is, which is like a lack of belonging, a lack of community, potentially feeling disenchanted with the real world. And then that's like a just completely different set of policy changes that you need to make to solve for something like that. So I'm not going to cover that, but like, I do think if we start to pay attention to why people are doing it, you end up realizing that the real, the benefits of why someone would want to do it. Like, for example, like when I was younger, I used to play a bunch of World of Warcraft, and, easier for me to make friends online than it was to make friends in the real world. Because in the real world, it's like, well, like, what do you look like? You know, are you good at sports or not? Like, there's a whole, you know, it's America, right? Like, that's what we value here. And like, it was very alienating as kind of like as a first generation immigrant kid, right? So I actually found a lot of relief and was able to like get that kind of social need met online. And I think like that is an incredibly big pull for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Same with with like, your identity being something that you have trouble accepting, like the ability to go and be something else. Like it's a chance for people to actually enjoy this existence that we have. So I think all that stuff's positive. I think there's going to be some sort of like balance point. I think it's going to be generational too. The need for offline interaction versus online interaction, right? I think for example, there's like there's older generations that they, no matter what, they like, closing a deal by looking someone in the eye and shaking their hand. It's like, like an old school, like I'm going to close this deal.
Yeah.
Versus our generation's like, screw that. I don't want to talk to anyone. Like, let me just send me a DocuSign and just like, I'll click the button and good, we're done. Right. And so,
yeah.
The point being that like, I think that as kind of like, I think it's gonna be different for each generation. Some people are being like, I'm happy spending 80% of my time online and 20% offline. And other people are gonna be like, no, I need my complete offline interaction, which is I need 80% offline and 20% online. So that's gonna be a very personal and probably generational thing. And so I think we're gonna find some balance there automatically. I'm not too concerned about that.
Interesting. And so, if you're giving advice to people trying to understand this and how it can apply to their business or their career, where do you recommend to like understand what's going on? Because it's like pretty foreign to most people. Yeah,
actually, let me share a little bit of an anecdote, and I think I could, and then I'll tell you kind of where I landed on it, because my wife and I have been going back and forth on this quite a bit, and she was like not on the fence. She was before on the fence, and now she's like all in on it. And so basically, one way to think about the metaverse is when you start to think about like human history, like, humans have like recorded history of like tens of thousands of years. And, but if you look forward, like how much history do we have yet to live? You end up realizing we have like, hundreds of thousands of millions of years of human history left to create still in front of us. And so, and presumably, like we survive, and hopefully Elon does his job and we're all still around. Right. So, but basically when we start to think about like, if we start to think about the human story in terms of like how much has happened, like in percentage, you end up realizing we're super, super, super early. We have way more history left to create than we've created so far. And so when you start to think about like leaving a legacy or doing something that's going to really matter in the future, you end up realizing that even things like Facebook and Google are inherently temporary and very early and like kind of short-lived compared to even things like empires, right? Like, the Roman Empire was like 2,000 years old. Like the US government's like far less, young. So when we start to think about things in terms of like thousands and thousands of years, you end up realizing that everything we've created so far is inherently still very young. And so one reason why this stuff is so important is it's the first time we have the ability to actually create something that could last hundreds or thousands of years. So the example I have, a practical example is if you're recording, you guys both have kids, like, if you record a message, not just for your kids, but your kids' kids, your kids' 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 kids, like for 15 generations down your family tree, and then like record a video message for them, how would you do it? You'd like take a video, you maybe put it on Dropbox, maybe try to upload it to Google Photos. But if someone forgets to pay your Dropbox bill or whatever, that stuff's gone.
Yeah.
You put it on a USB drive, maybe you put it on 5 USB drives, and you spread them out all over the world. It turns out it's actually a really hard problem to create something that's going to last a really long period of time. But this is what Ethereum is. This is what blockchains are. They're essentially shared data that's replicated all over the world by everyone who runs an Ethereum node. And so for the first time ever, if you put something on chain, it has a really high likelihood of lasting a really long period of time. And so when you start to think about this as a content creator, as an artist, if you want your creations to last, there's no other place to put it than on chain. Even physical things like, paintings and so on. I'm thinking about how much human art we've lost over just generations to fires and floods and wars and all of these other things. So for the first time, like, you can actually put something that's going to last. So this is actually why I think CryptoPunks are worth something, because they're the earliest form of permanent art. So if you think about the equivalent in the physical world, like, what's the earliest form of physical art? These like drawings in caves, right? In some cave in Africa, you go in there and like there's a sketch, and it's like, okay, this thing is like a priceless human artifact. So when you start to think about that in terms of like our digital existence going forward, you end up realizing that like the stuff being created today is the equivalent of caveman art. So CryptoPunks are essentially caveman art. So is that worth $400,000? I actually think it's worth a lot more, because it's effectively priceless. It's part of shared human cultural history. And so if I were a business today, I would think about, how do I put something on chain? How do I create stuff on Ethereum such that the effects of my business and the creations of either as an artist or someone who's creating social media, how do I create something that's going to last long periods of time? And we can debate, should something even last that long? Like, really, does my picture of my bagel in the morning that I put on Instagram, does it really need to be,
in eternity,
on the blockchain for tens of thousands of years for other people to see? We can debate that.
I like bagels.
I think food pics should not be allowed on chain. I think they're disgusting.
Fair enough, right? But actually, gas. See, the thing is, right now, gas cost is something that's like preventing all this stuff from actually happening. Like, you have to pay a bunch of ETH to actually put stuff on chain, so like people don't do it, and that's like a natural limiter on this stuff.
Yeah.
But ultimately, like, if I were a business, I'd be like, hey, like, if I want to create something I think is going to have asset value long term, I'm going to do it. So the one other thing about this entire industry that's revolutionary for artists is that they get paid royalties.
Yeah.
Right. And this completely upends the model. So before, like Van Gogh would like give away his paintings for like rent and stuff. And now, they trade for, I don't know, probably millions of dollars, right? His estate could be earning, a percentage on every single resale. So now creating art is not about what you make from the first sale. It's from what you make from every resale of that art as well. And so the default on OpenSea right now is like 2.5%. That's kind of like the standard fee that's happening. So if that $69 million Beeple sells for $100 million to someone else, Beeple's, he's banking another 2.5 million on the royalties from that thing. So for the rest of his life, he can never create another piece of art, and he can just gather royalties from all the resales of this stuff.
Yeah.
So now, as an artist, like, every piece of art you create is essentially like a dividend generating stock.
Yep.
Right. And it just completely changes the business model for these guys. So now you're going to have way more people becoming artists, way more people being like, this is a much more viable business, which is great for all of us, because now we all get to enjoy a lot more art. And so as a business, what I would think is like, how do you create interesting assets that people want to trade? And when you do, now there's an opportunity for you to not just participate in the first sale, but all of this this ongoing revenue. And I actually believe that the revenue from all the royalties are going to far outweigh the revenue from the initial sales for a lot of these things.
Yeah.
I mean, it's already the case for CryptoPunks. CryptoPunks were given away for free. And so each one is trading, for hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars. Those guys, they made all of their money on that project off of just the resale values of it.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That's amazing. I mean, I want to actually stop there because it's such a fucking incredible explanation. I don't even want us to even get sidetracked, because I thought that was incredible.
Yeah, no, that is an incredible way of talking about kind of on-chain permanence and history. But I actually want Amitt to explain another topic that has been in crypto for the last kind of 18 months. And I've done my best on this podcast, but Amitt's a lot smarter than I am. Explain what DeFi is.
Oh my God, you guys.
He's like, you fucking idiots. You guys don't know anything.
Oh my God. Okay, well, DeFi, just the literal answer to your question, stands for decentralized finance.
Okay, thank you. That's great.
Yeah. You're welcome. No, so DeFi is really interesting because it was kind of the first use case of Ethereum that ended up kind of blowing Ethereum up. And the way that I like to think about DeFi is that we have all these like kind of offline finance, like use cases. Like, you go get a mortgage, you get a loan, we trade on stock exchanges. We buy gold to have counter inflation. We go buy insurance. There's all these things that are kind of like people two people coming together to create a contract to exchange kind of financial value in some way. And so what DeFi is, and all of these, the thing is in our offline world, we have a lot of this is done by banks or insurance companies or whatever, and they're all taking profit margins on this stuff. So it's a really inefficient marketplace because they have all the capital, they have really great marketing teams. You go and you buy insurance, and they're, the cost of servicing your policy and all, and is it kind of is includes the marketing costs and the overhead and all this other stuff, and then their profit margins. So what DeFi is taking a lot of these kind of financial applications and creating a way for two people that don't know each other, don't trust each other, to be able to do some sort of financial transaction with each other. So one example may be you have Bitcoin, I have Ethereum. We're completely anonymous, and we just want to be able to trade Bitcoin for Ethereum in some secure way. And so, one of the first kind of DeFi applications was the idea of a decentralized exchange. So right now on Coinbase, if you go on Coinbase and you buy and sell Ethereum on Coinbase Pro or use one of their trading products, Coinbase basically has an order book which has all the people who what price everyone's willing to buy Bitcoin at, what price everyone's willing to sell Bitcoin at, and they basically just match people together, and it happens all on their servers. In DeFi, kind of the earliest DeFi exchange, you would go online, you'd say I want to buy for this much, and instead of transacting through a central company like Coinbase, it's happening in a smart contract that's completely decentralized. That's just it's almost like you go to a town square, and there's a bulletin board there, and everyone posts their asks. Everyone advertises their services, and other people then take the little slip of paper, and it's almost like that, but for trading currencies.
Got it.
And so that was that was one of the original things, and then it really, really blew up with Uniswap, which now has more volume than Coinbase. So what Uniswap's big innovation was they essentially said, okay, we're going to take these people who are liquidity providers. A liquidity provider is someone who allows one currency to be exchanged for another currency. And so I'm going to go up there. I'm going to say I'm going to put ETH and Bitcoin into this thing, and I'm going to put 50, whatever the exchange rate is, I'm going to put the equivalent amount in US dollars, right? So I'll put 1 Bitcoin to 10 ETH or whatever. I'm just using those numbers. And then when someone goes to Uniswap and says, hey, I want to buy ETH, they're just kind of pulling out of this liquidity pool, this pool that I filled. And so I'm basically able to, I don't need a counterparty. I can just say, I want to buy some ETH, and Uniswap uses sophisticated techniques to figure out the clearing price. And I'm able to just very quickly exchange one thing for another thing. So Uniswap is incredible because now they essentially enabled liquidity between all of these different assets, and really quickly. So so essentially the ability for someone to transform their one cryptocurrency into another cryptocurrency is now is instant. And what's also cool now is that people are oh, this is really interesting. Maybe I should go and do things, and you do things put stock online. So I can go and wrap a Tesla stock into a token. I can create an offline corporation or trust or some sort of entity that holds Tesla stock and then issues tokens on chain. And those tokens can now be exchanged as well. And there's underlying Tesla stock that holds it. It's similar to an ETF, right? On a stock market exchange. So all this is to say is this is an example of how you can basically take existing, and this is so the idea behind Uniswap is essentially replacing the New York Stock Exchange. It's replacing NASDAQ, and it's just much more efficient. And it's essentially getting rid of rent seeking. It's getting rid of all these kind of middleman fees. So it's way more efficient. And now if you're someone that has the ability to you have a bunch of liquidity, you have a bunch of US dollars, or you have a bunch of ETH or whatever, you can now put into these liquidity pools and earn an annual percentage yield. You can basically earn a yield on your capital. So DeFi is with these kind of basic building blocks, has created like an entire financial industry on top of it. So in addition to, exchanges, there's like loan platforms, there's insurance platforms, all of which, if you have, capital, you can put your capital into it and then just earn returns on it. And the returns are just way higher than what you're seeing in your bank account. So like, it's actually ridiculous to go like your, Wells Fargo bank account, earn like I don't even know what it is now, like 0.3%, like annual percentage yield. Like that's just like, you might as well, keep your money under the mattress at that point. But you go and you convert it to like, like a USDC, which is a US dollar equivalent on chain. You convert to USDC on Coinbase or whatever, and then you then put that USDC into like a liquidity pool. You can earn like between 2 and sometimes upwards of like 50%. It really depends on how risky the pool is and all this other stuff, which I can't really get into here. But like the point is that like you can actually earn real compounding returns on your capital. Obviously, there's a lot of like new projects launching and so on, but the kind of the safest bets are putting into a loan platform like Compound, an exchange platform like Uniswap, and you can start earning yield on your, like actual yield on your assets. So DeFi is like the composition of all these little basic things, just kind of like building up bigger and bigger things. To give you an example of like what's happening at the craziest end, people are launching like automated hedge funds that automatically you put some money in and it automatically redistributes your capital across like an exchange, a loan platform, an insurance platform, whatever, to like maximize your yield.
Wow.
It's like crazy. And I know it's wild, right? It's like what you pay someone, you go to like a financial advisor, you're just like, I have money I want to, deploy for my retirement account. And they're like, okay, like we'll put you in bonds and stocks and all this other stuff. And then they charge you whatever 2% or some nonsense fee for it. And like in this, it's happening automated and it's happening much more efficient. And like, people are earning these like 45% yields. But you have to be a little savvy, right? Because that doesn't hold and you have to constantly move things around. But the gist is, the point is that it's there, it's real. There's like billions and billions of dollars of capital locked into these smart contracts and these various platforms. And like, I think like this is like a financial skill that's gonna be as important as learning how to like trade options and stuff. So like if you're looking to like kind of get ahead of the curve here, I would definitely look into some of these DeFi platforms.
I have one last question because I promised it to the listeners on the last episode.
Okay.
And we're going to ask it in a way where we can't get in trouble. What are 3 protocols that the most developers are working on that's not named Ethereum? Because I have a view wherever the developers go gets reflected in the price.
Yeah.
That I think, by the way, that's a great view to have just generally. And that's actually my basis for what I tend to back too, is I look to where, as an engineer myself, like I look to where like, the developers are going, because that just compounds, especially in crypto, like developers compound the amount of activity on the network. So I would look at Solana. And Solana is interesting because it's an Ethereum,
our podcast
competitor.
Engineers just like logged on to Coinbase. I see them. They literally just got on their phones.
Solana is super interesting. In fact, a bunch of the people here. So a big problem. Actually, let me give you a reason why this is the case. A big problem with Ethereum right now is the gas prices. As Ethereum goes up in value, it becomes really expensive to do things. So people are looking for alternatives. And so Ethereum is what's known as a layer 1. It's like kind of the backbone blockchain. But what you can do is you can create these things called layer 2s, and that are kind of side chains that allow you to do transactions in a much more efficient way. And so a lot of developers are building layer 2s or building alternative layer 1 blockchains, which allow you to essentially do different applications, run your application with much cheaper gas fees. So Solana is one of those. So a lot of developers at this NFT conference, for example, are really into Solana because it's way cheaper to mint stuff. It's way cheaper for people to transact, and there's a bunch of benefits to it. So Solana is definitely one of them, but that's a layer 1. On the layer 2 front, a bunch of people are working on Polygon. I think the token symbol is Matic. And so Polygon is super interesting because it's essentially a layer 2 for Ethereum. So it's completely compatible with Ethereum and allows you to essentially move assets between Polygon and Ethereum. If you move something to it, it's like almost like if you guys have heard of Lightning Network for Bitcoin, it's very equivalent to that. Like where it's like it's like, yeah, it's like kind of compatible with Bitcoin, but allows you to basically do really cheap transactions. So a lot of people find it really interesting. So almost all developers right now that are like kind of working on these protocols, they're either working on like trying to improve transaction speed, or they're working on like an interesting application. So the last one, I'll give you two. Actually, I'll give you two. I'll give you a bonus one. The third one is Uniswap. So those guys are super interesting because I've already talked about them. They're constantly evolving their exchange. They're constantly making it more and more sophisticated. And they have one of the best dev teams and one of the best, best research teams behind them. And working with them at, I know you guys have heard the Paradigm guys, who I think are like some of the best VCs in the space.
Yep.
You guys did Coinbase, right? So like Fred is one of the GPs there, and he's amazing. And just the quality of thinking behind what those guys are doing is just super high. And so as a result, it attracts a lot of developers, it attracts a lot of developing interest. And the last one is a bit of, it's out there. It's Metaverse focused. And so there's this company called Sandbox, and SoftBank just did like a $93 million round in them yesterday. And what they're building is they're basically building like a decentralized Minecraft. If you go check it out, it's called the Sandbox. And you'll see it's like this really cool virtual world where people like, they own a piece of land, they can like create different items. And it's basically building like this, like, it's building this like visual virtual world that we talked about. And they have this token, the Sand token. And because there's so many people trying to build on top of this universe, the Sand token is in hot demand because it's like the currency of that universe. And so it's an example. Like, so the point is that like, I think that these tokens, they come in many different forms. The development teams come in many different forms. But ultimately, I do think you have the right idea, which is like, go to where the development heat is. And that's usually where there'll be the most interesting things happening in the future.
It's great.
Amazing. Thank you. Yes, Sandbox is a big push here on the podcast.
Yeah, we had another previous guest telling us about the Sandbox, and the price I think has run up from like 70-80 cents to over $3 in the last like month.
Yeah, but I think a lot of that's probably based on it's based on the Meta announcement. Facebook's announcement. It's based on the fact that like there's a SoftBank investment was just announced too. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of hype around it. I mean, there's a long way to go to build this stuff. But those guys, the technology looks pretty solid from my perspective, and so I think that they're going to do great things.
Amazing. Well, thank you very much. This is an incredible explanation. Especially, I think to me, what resonated was like the idea of things living forever. I think that's just like an incredible way to think about it, because it makes it very simple now to understand why blockchain matters. And I think that will resonate with a lot of people, because I think people that are not ingrained in this community can't figure out like use cases in their mind. Like the DeFi thing sounds great, but like that's going to go over 99% of people's heads right now.
Yeah.
But like the idea of things living forever is just, it's simple. Like, why wouldn't you want to do that?
Yeah. No, I have to give credit to Amitt. Not only has he been my crypto Sherpa over the last decade, but a lot of the tech takes that I sound smart on the podcast.
You steal from him?
Yeah.
Okay.
we're in a group chat. He goes, you could steal this for the podcast.
By the way, where can people find you? Because I know you post amazing things on Twitter. Is Twitter the best place?
Yeah, I'll just stick with Twitter for now. That's probably the best.
And what's
your handle?
AMITTM, Amitt M.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you. Enjoy New York City and the rest of NFT week, and hopefully we'll. I'd rather see you in real life for the Metaverse, but if I got to settle for the Metaverse, that's fine too.
I'd like some Carbone too.
Yeah, I can't have spicy rigatoni in the fucking Metaverse.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that's a feature, not a bug, given your desire to have a skinny Metaverse avatar.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you. We really appreciate it.
Perfect.
Yeah. Thanks again, guys. Thanks for having me.
All right. Wow. That was amazing. An amazing explanation. I was just saying, we just paused to then start, we're going to do winners, losers content next, but the portion, if you want to share this episode with friends, obviously you can really digest it, but I think the piece where him and his wife talk about how does art or content or your creation live on forever is such an incredible explanation of blockchain, because I think the challenge for a lot of people, and even for myself, like I appreciate DeFi, I kind of get NFTs, but at that fundamental level, like the explanation of blockchain was extremely important. And I think it's almost like you should have people, listen to that part and then listen to the whole episode, because I think it's like you'll have such a deeper appreciation of the conversation if you can understand that.
And if you just think about the hour discussion, like the magic of crypto.
Yeah.
So it's from on-chain permanence so that you have memories forever. You can reimagine how banks, insurance companies, and hedge funds work.
Yeah.
You can reimagine art. It's literally everything that we've all experienced in our life is going to be reimagined in crypto.
Yeah.
The way companies are formed. We talked about DAOs for a quick second.
Yeah.
Like DAOs, like Jason was saying, could replace company formation.
Yeah.
So everything we've learned in Web 2.0 and Web 1.0 is going to get disrupted.
Yeah,
whether it happens in 6 months, 10 years, 15 years, no one knows, but it's happening.
Well, comes back to why Mark Zuckerberg is a fucking genius. He knows his days are numbered. He knows 10 years from now. Look, he's a young ass dude, right? What is he, 35 years old now?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, assume that guy's living to 250. I mean, he's basically a robot.
I think he feels his hands are tied. I think he's so smart that he realizes, if I were to guess Mark Zuckerberg in his perfect world, walk away from Facebook and start in crypto.
Yeah, so I agree. And I think I bet you his hands are all over crypto. We just don't know it.
Sure.
And so.
But imagine if he was building on crypto.
Oh my, it'd be unfair.
Right?
Because he gets it.
Yes.
And I think, but to his credit, he knows if decentralized way of living is coming, let's say it's 20 years from now, truly to the vision of everyone, it's not happening in 5, it's probably 10, right? Of like everything is decentralized, right? Knowing him, he knows, he's like, all right, that means Facebook's over. Instagram's over.
Yep.
Everything I've built is over.
Mm-hmm.
So Amitt said it. Facebook, Google, like they probably aren't going to exist in a decentralized world. So he's like, fuck it, I'll make you some glasses that you're going to need.
Yeah, I thought one of the most important things to explain it to someone who's never heard of crypto is like the simple example. You upload your video to your kids into Dropbox, you forget to pay the monthly subscription, the video's gone.
Yeah. Like think how much of human history is gone.
Yes.
Like we'll never have access to it. We don't know what happened.
Yeah.
But imagine, there's now this amazing record that we all get to know about each other forever. That's, that to me like struck a chord. I thought that was amazing.
Great stuff.
All right, so let's move on. Winners, losers, content. Who's your winner of the week?
Oh, this one's incredible. So it's like a convergence of group chat podcasts.
Yes.
And it's
Powerhouse.
And some of our closest friends, Brian Toole and John Turshen from the Hwood Group, launched Hwood Media during the pandemic.
A few years ago.
But had to focus on it because restaurants were closed.
Yep.
So during the pandemic, they partnered with Sinai VC, who's Zach White, also a guest of the pod. And they did a Magic Johnson documentary that just publicly announced that they sold.
To Apple TV?
Yeah.
Which is obviously blockbuster.
Huge.
Because Apple, by the way, is not it's not like Netflix that buys 500 pieces of content a week.
Yep.
Apple's buying very select. The stuff they put out is like next level, incredible stuff. And I mean, who knew Brian and John were going to be like TV producers?
Yeah. So now they can not just get us dinner reservations, they can get us to
I hope we're invited to the premiere. Because
Yeah.
I was telling them in our group chat today, like Magic Johnson to our family growing up,
He was it.
he was it.
Yep.
Like if there was
I vividly remember when Magic Johnson announced she had HIV, our mom was crying.
yeah, it was the saddest day in LA history.
Yeah.
But since the Kobe situation,
Sure.
that was such a big day in our city. And Magic Johnson, Showtime era, there'll never be like that. He was a rock star.
Oh, absolutely. He captivated the entire sports world and still has in the last 30 years since he's been played.
I mean, my biggest thing about Magic Johnson are his Italian boat trips. And as long as that's in the documentary, that's all I care.
And arguably the best Twitter and Instagram account.
I mean, unbelievable transparency about how he feels about everything.
I'm now traveling from Sardinia to Capri.
And I will be eating pasta with my friend Kenny the Jet.
Hey, if you're worth as much money as he is, you can say whatever you want.
And by the way, like, you know, he is the original celebrity influencer entrepreneur guy. Like,
he was the first athlete turned businessman.
Big
way.
Celebrity.
Yeah.
Like, think about it, in the 80s, like, who was it? Michael Jackson maybe was doing a business. Maybe Madonna was. Like, there wasn't a lot of people doing what he was doing. Like, he was way ahead of his curve.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, he has a massive business empire post his incredible basketball career. Post when, I mean, just to put it bluntly, everyone thought he was going to die.
Yeah.
It was like consensus, like, we only have Magic for a few more years after he announced.
And seemingly completely healthy.
Yes, he looks great.
Amazing. Yeah, so congrats, guys. I can't wait to watch it. It's massive.
Yeah.
My winner is, a product that I'm not very fond of because of the way it looks, but unbelievable story. Allbirds went public and the IPO priced at $15, valuing the company at $2.1 billion. The stock ripped 90% on its first day, valuing the company nearly $4 billion. And raising, a few $100 million of capital, which now just gives you like, look, sustainability is going nowhere. We have a project in that same space in footwear as well with Alice Gray and our sustainable clog, which we have some big announcements of all the amazing partners we're working on with that. But like, we obviously know the space is huge. It's the future. Sustainability, climate change. These are like, we talked about it. There's going to be $1 trillion companies that come out of climate change.
Yep.
And so it's really interesting that the market actually appreciated it. And, congrats to them. I have friends who work there that, they probably made a lot of money yesterday. So congrats. And excited to see. It's also exciting to see these D2C brands get rewarded because, a lot of them haven't been. And so there's clearly something about Allbirds that resonated with investors that some of these other folks didn't.
Yeah.
So
it's a great one.
It's a great one. Okay, loser.
Oh, this isn't obvious. So I don't know if you saw the story broke today. Robert Sarver, who's the owner of the Phoenix Suns, Baxter Holmes from ESPN, wrote an explosive piece about basically decades of him using the N-word.
Yeah.
He just was dropping N-bombs left, right, and center. And there's numerous instances he said, why does Draymond Green get to run up and down the court saying the N-word? And apparently he actually says it. He doesn't say N-word. And I can't. And he said it to a player. And a player stood up to him and was like, no, you can't say it. I'm not tolerating it. Apparently he did it to one of the former coaches, Earl Watson, back in 2017. And you have to this is similar to the Gruden emails. Someone wanted him out. They've had this information. Robert Sarver has been known in the NBA as a bad owner, not very player friendly, not friendly to the...
And that's the tip of the iceberg. Brian Toll just sent us an article that about LaMarcus Aldridge, about giving him strippers so that he'll get them pregnant so that he'll feel like a need to want to stay in Phoenix.
Yeah.
That's insane.
It's absolutely insane. But obviously, this guy's a
piece of shit.
Piece of shit, horrible human being. He shouldn't be allowed to own an NBA team. But here's where I struggle is the NBA has known this.
Yeah.
If Earl Watson was getting called the N-word back in 2017 and 18, if the LaMarcus Aldridge situation was happening, if
everyone knew,
and they decide when they want him out.
Yeah, because I bet you there's a billionaire that wants a team and they got to make room for him.
Yeah, so it's similar to the Gruden thing. The NFL knew this for a decade.
Yeah.
The problem now is the league's actually bear no consequence.
Yeah.
Robert Sarver is going to be forced to sell the team. Like,
Make
that's
billions
pretty
of
obvious.
dollars.
Make billions of dollars. Yeah, that team will go for $2-3 billion.
Why not? It's a hot team.
And it's a hot city.
Yeah.
Phoenix is a great team to own.
Because you can live in LA.
You're an hour from LA, hour from Vegas. Real estate's for an athlete making $40 million a year. You can buy whatever. You buy like literally a fortress. Great weather in the season time, right? They're not there in the summer when it's 110 degrees.
Yeah.
So during season, I mean, look at Devin Booker. He has a relationship with Kendall Jenner, and he was in LA this past weekend.
Yeah. He just comes back easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
But he's going to be forced to sell. Who's going to buy the team? Bezos?
It's got to. They did this because they're making room for someone.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it's a $10 billion guy. Because they're not that powerful. It's a $100 billion plus guy.
Right. Elon doesn't want a team.
Elon doesn't care. Warren doesn't care. Bill Gates doesn't care. Bezos is interesting.
Bernard? Or no? I mean, they gave the Nets to Alibaba. Josai?
I don't know. Phoenix Suns don't scream luxury to me. It's not the Lakers.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to think who it's one of these new young tech billionaires that is like.
Yeah, because the Utah Jazz sold to the founder of Qualtrics, software guy.
Yeah.
Who's like in his late 30s. I think.
He's young. So maybe it's a group of young guys that are buying it.
Yeah.
Interesting to see.
But it definitely torpedoed him on purpose.
Yeah. I mean, it wouldn't be maybe it was even someone looking to buy the team and said, screw you, I have this dirt.
Yeah.
I'm going to make you force your hand. Sports is a tough business.
Mm-hmm.
My loser is extremely obvious. This is what I call being the Nostradamus of this company.
Okay.
It is called Peloton.
Oh, what happened?
They are getting slaughtered in after hours. Slaughtered. Why? Because it's a stupid fucking company. Okay.
Do they have earnings?
They had earnings. The shares have fallen 25%.
Oh, wow. They are getting slaughtered.
And after hours. Guess what? Softening demand. Shocker. They missed on revenue. They were $5 million short on revenue. They're still losing $370 million. I mean, I can't even what are you doing over there? And then they cut all their forecasts for the next year saying, they did throw in the old supply chain constraint at the end.
Yeah.
But this has nothing to do with supply chain constraints. This is it. This business should never be this big. I'm not mad at the bike, and I'm not mad at you having your bike as your place where you hang your clothes in your house, because that's what most people use it for. It's just it's a clothes hanger. But at home fitness, I do not fucking believe in that everyone wants to do it all the time. I just don't believe. It's not, to me, the revolutionary thing that everyone wants it to be. Maybe your boys in the metaverse may have something better, but the cost, $2,500, and then a $40 a month subscription fee, it's just ridiculous from a price standpoint. There's not many people that can stomach that long term. They're just not. If it was, that's why the app, what Apple is doing, or maybe Peloton's just digital product makes a little bit more sense. But we as humans are not self-motivated enough to fucking work out on our own and stay fit. Otherwise, we would not have the rising obesity levels we have globally. So to me, this is just an indication that Peloton should exist. And I think it should be a much smaller business. It doesn't mean it's a bad business. It just people are trying to tell me it's the Tesla of working out.
That's not true.
Because people don't work out. So it can't be the Tesla of working out.
Tesla reimagined fossil fuels.
Yeah, I mean, the way people talk, Peloton's a content company. What? No, it's a fucking stationary bike.
Yeah.
They pay $40 a month for it.
Yeah,
it's
so
not a content company.
Down from its peak of $163 a share to $63 a share.
And it's going to 20. That's where it's going.
Hey, you've been on the Peloton bit for a long time. So
I need one of those structured products where I can just short this thing for 5 years. Because this thing, it's not going to go back up. It's just not. They're not going to figure it out. It's not that they won't figure it out. It's just not supposed to be this big. It's not a $25 billion business. I'm sorry. It's ridiculous.
Sure.
So I guess I'm winner of the week.
Yeah, there you go.
Content.
My content is the latest episode of The Shop. The Shop is Maverick Carter's show on HBO. So this past week he had David Beckham, James Corden, Saweetie,
Wow.
Bubba Wallace. Great episode.
Really?
Wide-ranging like personalities.
Yeah.
And, you know, it ended like super powerful. So, I mean, I don't want to spoil it, but it was just a great conversation. James Corden's really funny.
Is he?
Yeah.
That's kind of annoying.
Maybe, I mean, he was funny on the show.
I know, the karaoke thing, I was like, dude, come on. That's enough.
I mean, people clearly love it. He gets like Justin Bieber and like Ice Cube to lip sync with him.
Sure. Doesn't mean people have
And
good
like
taste.
Offset and Quavo and... But it was a good episode.
All right.
Recommend
That's
it.
good. My content is music. Post Malone, Weekend, dropping a song tonight. Epic. I think it's like huge fan of Post Malone. I thought the last album he did was like phenomenal. The last two singles, less to be
Motley
said.
Crue's great.
Not my vibe. Not my vibe. So I'm excited because I feel like The Weeknd, like, he doesn't miss.
The Weeknd won Halloween.
Yeah, he was Marlon Brando.
There you go.
Godfather. What do you got, Jason?
Travis Scott's dropping music tonight. He just tweeted.
Wow,
New music
song?
at midnight. Yep.
Oh wow, so it's gonna be a hot night then.
Yep.
I'm excited for some new music. I think that's all we have. Do we have anything else? Do we shout outs?
We do have one shout out.
Okay.
It's coming in from Cobra Kai.
Okay.
He's saying, I want to shout out the 90s Experience interactive pop-up opening next week. Big moment with the launch with some of the group chat team attending and ready for all the LA Cathys to come check it out for a nice nostalgic experience.
Where is it?
Topanga Mall in the Valley.
Topanga Mall. And what day does it start?
It's on the 11th.
November 11th. Okay,
Correct.
cool. So November 11th, Topanga Mall, and it's up there for a few weeks, right?
Correct. It's the pop event, so it'll be there for a while.
Okay.
You can come out, bring your family, everything, anything you want to do.
And it's all about the 90s. We love the 90s.
Love the 90s.
All right. Well, Kai, good luck with that. We'll see you out there. And that's about it. We got Run Club on Saturday. Been having some really great conversations at the Run Club.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. Like, I don't know, just such a wide range of people that attend and different opinions. Someone, 2 weeks ago, last week was all about NFTs. And Will, who's a Run Club member, he was talking about NFTs and this and this. I'm like, you're not going to NFT NYC? And he's like, no, I just, I was made plans with two of my friends and they bailed. And similar to you, another friend of yours, I was like, dude, you can't be talking about NFTs all the fucking time and not go to New York.
Yep. And
so if you're in that community, you had to be there. So I kept pressuring him. I was like, did you book? Then I see him post on Instagram, like in New York City, which was awesome.
Good for Will.
Yeah.
Get some stories on Saturday.
Yeah,
Report
let's see.
back.
Yeah, let's see what's going on. All right, guys, have a great weekend. Is it daylight savings this weekend?
Is it?
Fuck.
Yikes.
That's the worst.
So stupid.
Yeah.
I mean, if someone
Wait,
running
this
for
is the one that
president removes
benefits
that,
us.
what?
This is the one that benefits us. Is if you get an extra hour of sleep, you fall back. Right?
Yeah, but it's so dark at like 3:00. It's like pitch
Yeah.
black.
Yeah, and
I don't want
kids
that.
don't like how long. I forget how long does it take kids to. Do you have to wake up an hour earlier?
Yes. They're not
I
going to
thought-
figure it out.
I thought you said you weren't doing it anymore. I thought you said daylights. You're not participating. in
I'm
daylight
not
savings
participating.
anymore.
It may throw other
That could
people
be
off.
interesting. What if like we just make Mav sleep and we just for us 8:00 is
Yeah, just
9
like we
o'clock.
operate different time. They're like, hey, you want to have dinner at 8? And you show up at 7. All right, guys. Have a great weekend. And I think we might have another guest on Sunday. I forgot. We might. Yeah, it might be in the NFT space as well. So stay tuned and enjoy. Happy Diwali.